This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Just one laugher. We all want the easy game, the one where we can kind of sit back, relax, and enjoy ourselves. Figured it would come against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but should have known better. What's happening, guys? It's the Hindsight 20 podcast. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening. I'm your host, Jerry Mallory. As always, a proud member of SB Nation's Pride of Detroit, proud member of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. And so here we were. I'm sitting there. I'm sure like you at the beginning of this game thinking, this should be an easy one, right? It's the 2-7 Jaguars. We're getting some players back, Slay, another week of health for Ziggy Ansah. This should finally be the easy victory. Lo and behold, the Lions never making it easy for themselves, never making it easy for their fans. But hey, they found a way to win. And that, at the end of the day, is all that matters. I'm the first to use the cliche, not making excuses or apologizing for victories. I'm not, because, to win the NFL is not easy, okay? I don't care who you're playing. Each and every week you're going against the best of the best. Even the Cleveland Browns. I know you probably instantly thought of the Cleveland Browns when I said the best of the best. Those 54 guys or 45 that dress on Sunday are still the best of even the guys from Cleveland and even the guys from Jacksonville. So let's talk about this game. We may have a special guest joining us a little bit later. Before we do that though, let's backtrack. I want to thank the fine people at 1010XL in Jacksonville. I was able to join their show, this morning. Got a chance to talk a little bit about, life in Detroit as a Lions fan, the tailgating scene, the Thanksgiving scene. So do yourself a favor. Go to 1010XL.com. You can check out some of their coverage. If you go to some of the archives, you'll hear me on there. I was on the show today, which will be Sunday, the 20th at around 9:15. So I want to thank the fine folks over there for having me on. Looking forward to future endeavors with them, perhaps down the road. Now, one interesting point, and we'll touch on it more a little bit later, was the Thanksgiving aspect, because I really do believe what I said when I think we kind of take that for granted. Each and every year, we know on Thanksgiving the Lions will be playing. Now, there are other teams to where they randomly get that third game now. So it's been, Green Bay has been there, or Kansas City, and it's a big deal. With us, we kind of take it for granted, I think. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's talk about this game. And, one thing I really want to point out is, and it's happened a couple times this year where, our running game, not just because it was 7 yards or whatever it was because we played against one of the worst, run defenses in the league. And this has happened before, where you have a horrible run defense versus a horrible run offense, and you would think maybe it'll even out. Maybe this would be a chance for the Lions to kind of recoup. And no, man, this running attack is horrible. I think it's clearly evident that we don't really have that next guy up. Now, Reddick has been good in flashes, but we know where his bread is buttered. Washington looked good in the preseason, but he's still young. He's a rookie. I don't know if the offensive line, is really where it needs to be from run blocking. I don't think it is. But I think the biggest issue is just not having that guy there, being Amir Abdullah. And that's something we have to address going forward, as we look ahead, so to speak. Reddick's going to do what he does. You love him. You hope Washington, gets better and, things like that. But even when Abdullah comes back, whether it be next year or sometime this year, it's probably going to be next year, we need a guy with him, because I don't think we have NFL quality running backs at the moment. And it's showing. And you add that with, so run blocking, average to below average. I don't know how we want to really look at it. You add those two things together and the run attack is non-existent. So I think for Stafford to do what he has done, without having a run game to speak of, speaks volumes of how good he is. The stats aren't flashy. And it's not 2011. It's not, 5,000 yards. It's probably going to be in the range of 4,500, maybe ish, something like that. but the turnovers are down. He's scoring where need be. Like this game, for instance, no touchdowns, but he did everything you needed him to do to get the victory. And so you really appreciate it. This was a wild game though. You had, some key turnovers from both sides of the ball. And then Andre Roberts, man, you got to give this guy credit, for the turnaround. Now, two notes. I was looking at the end of this game, two things that happened. The first was, Shenardrick, probably saying his name wrong, Marks. Now, what he did was inexcusable. It was bad. Okay. Jumping off sides, which allowed us to get the first down. We were probably not going to run a play there on 4th and 1. And then, that pretty much sealed the deal of the game. I felt like the CBS crew, I forgot who was with Steve Berline, but they did a good job overall. They rode that guy for like 10, 15 minutes and the camera just would not leave him. I understand that play was instrumental, but there's so much else to look at. That isn't the solitary reason. There's, if you're doing a list of 100 things why they lost, it's in the mix. It's big, but I think they kind of picked on the guy a little bit too much. I think they overdid, how many times they showed him. Now, supposedly, and, we don't follow Jacksonville like that. Maybe you heard the story. I didn't before they mentioned it on TV. Berline goes on to say how, Synardrick Marks, I know I'm saying his name wrong. Forgive me. And so what? At the same time, how, he kind of thought it was inexcusable that the team would, go so far as to give him a low number of snaps. It was disrespectful, yada, yada. So yeah, for him to kind of talk junk the week before and then have that boneheaded play, it's bad. But I felt like they just kept showing him and they kept talking about it. And the camera just like, dude, lay off the guy a little bit. It was pretty funny. The second was Jalen Ramsey. And two things about him. Number one, let's talk about on the field. That's most important. Okay. The guy's phenomenal. He's went up against some of the best corners or rather receivers in the league this year, and he's shown his worth. There are questions whether he would be a corner or be more of a safety. The dude is a freak, man. They really got a special guy here, and it's shown so far. He doesn't have an interception yet, but his coverage is superb. There's rumblings, talk about him being the defensive rookie of the year, and so kudos to him for that. Now, he has made himself known for other reasons as well. Now, there's questions about his sexuality. I'm not here to really divulge into that. If you want to look at it, go to YouTube and listen to his interview with Steve Smith, and you can kind of, they have some other clips of, way he's dressed. I don't care. I really don't care a lot about these guys' personal lives. I feel like personally, a lot of their personal lives probably don't really, reflect or they don't really matter to me. That's what I'm trying to say. All I really care about how you do on the field because we don't really know them. Okay. But that's one aspect. In addition to that, he had this thing where he went back and forth with Steve Smith Sr., the great and ageless wonder, if you will, receiver from the Baltimore Ravens. And that made a lot of rounds on Facebook, on Instagram, on IG and whatnot. And so, the next one that he kind of added to his lore. I mean, this guy is on the screen, on the field, off the field. He's like a defensive Odell Beckham Jr. with, the phenomenal play, the rumors about, hey, extracurricular, whatever, and the things of that sort. The dude just broke down crying at the end of the game. I mean, just straight up, like a temper tantrum style cry. Now, some people want to laugh at it. And yes, I did laugh at it myself. I cracked up. But, I respect the passion. Here this guy is, he's used to winning from Florida State, whatever he, did in his endeavors, were probably successful before, joining, the Jaguars from an athletic standpoint. And, he's sick of it. He's sick of losing. So to kind of show that passion, to kind of show that, hey, I care about what's going on. And, things of that sort. I respect it. But guess what, dude? You're going to be blowing up on IG, on Facebook, Twitter. I mean, the internet is ruthless now, man. If you slip up, you will be a meme. You will be immortalized in a negative way. And I think he'll be added to it. But, a little bit more about this game. Ziggy Ansah is back. Yeah, no sacks. I don't care. He provided pressure all game long. And that's what I love to see. If you remember, and I love Ziggy, one thing I kind of said that irked me about him was he would go through too many stretches where he's not getting consistent pressure. Okay, 14 and a half sacks is good, but I'd rather you have 10 sacks and just, you're always a force. They run this stunt with him now where he's, going up the middle, and it's good. We saw it a couple weeks ago, and this week he looked even healthier. So I want to give kudos to the defense. I think they did a fine job. They weren't playing the New England Patriots. They weren't even playing, I don't know, the Green Bay Packers, whatever. But, they did a lot better. Raphael Bush with the pick six. That was wonderful. Darius Slay played good. One of those pass interference calls were completely bogus. They were around the ball. They were active, forcing the fumble. Glover Quinn putting that helmet on the ball. That was big. They played physical. I'm not, giving them credit for knocking guys out the game, but Blake Bortles was obviously injured, which played a big role in some of his inaccurate passes. TJ Yeldon with the concussion. I'm not giving them props for injuring guys. I'm saying though, they did play physical. And so, overall, I'll talk a little bit more about it later. It's like after a game like this, it should be a laugh or it's not. Where do you sit? It was a win, but are you that much more confident as we look forward to them playing, the Minnesota Vikings? There's a lot to be said, but I feel like, it was a good redemption for Andre Roberts. He's done that before where he had a huge drop. What was that against Washington? Had a huge drop and then, he comes back and he redeems himself. So that's awesome. And special teams was solid again. Punting was there. Return game was there. Just, got to clean up with that fumble situation. Aside from that, Golden Tate had the fumble. It happens. I mean, we've only really fumbled the ball a couple of times, twice, both by Stafford until today. And technically the special teams one was a muff, but I can't fault them. All right, guys. As we said, we're going to go ahead and get to our special guest. It's going to be Chris Gandy. So let's give a listen. It's been a while since we had him on. Let's take a listen as Chris Gandy breaks down his thoughts on the game. We have the one and only Chris Gandy join us. Gandy, it's been a long time. I don't know if you remember this, but the last time the Lions and the Jaguars played each other, I believe that's where we first met and kind of, started this whole podcasting, internet thing going between the two of us. What's up, bro?
Man, love at first sight, huh?
Yeah, there you go. What's happening, bro?
Good, man. I was not making it last week. Came down with a flu bug, but, hit the game today, and it's got me drained, exhausted, but glad to talk some Lions. You didn't watch film yet? I know a lot of people were like, oh, Gandy didn't watch film, but watched a good game and excited to talk about the defense.
That's what's up, bro. So let's start off with just your overall thoughts on the game. We'll break down the particulars in a second. Just, you were sitting there. I'm sure the crowd was electric. I didn't make it, today, but, how was the crowd and just what were your thoughts on the game overall?
Yeah, the crowd was anxious today. I think that when you hear the crowd go, let's go Lions, on offense, they're just calling for us to move the ball, right? Because to start the game, we were anemic. Couldn't run the ball. We couldn't run the ball all game. Really couldn't get any third down conversions. So the game really, like all games all year, really took a while. It brewed, right? And then the Lions finally caught wind and, going in the fourth quarter, really made some plays. So, all in all, excited the Lions could come away with another nice victory, but really want to see the Lions put together 4 quarters of football.
Yeah, I agree with you completely on that. Just too many 3 and outs too, man. It's like, okay, fine. You're not going to score every time. All right. Definitely not going to get touchdowns. Not even going to get field goals. But when you just consistently have 3 and outs, first of all, it just completely tires out your defense. And I felt like we were bottling up the run pretty good. And then Chris Ivory started getting loose, in my opinion, because those guys were just on the field too much. So those are big bodies, man. And so I agree with you on that for sure.
So during the game, I tuned in the Lions app. I'm one of the suckers that has a Sprint phone because it's got unlimited data. But when I look to get, service in the stadium when I can, I was looking at time of possession. We were in the third quarter, and the Jags had already had like 30 minutes possession compared to like the Lions, like I want to say low 20s. So the Lions had already almost played a full game of defense through 3 quarters, just off the simple fact that we couldn't get them off the field.
Exactly. And that comes back to bite you. Now, you said when you first got on here that you had a few thoughts about the defense. What kind of stood out to you, man? You have a pretty keen eye. I remember we were talking about Issa Abdul-Qaddus like before anybody was even, he was on no one's radar, and you kind of brought him to the foray, and, he's turned into a decent player down there in Miami now. What were some things that stood out to you on defense today?
The linebackers played better today, right? It showed.
Most definitely.
But the D-line played better. We really took the tight ends out the game, right? I was afraid of Julius Thomas a little bit today and selfishly started him in fantasy, but Killebrew just played lights out. I think everyone recognized how well he played. I mean, there were some third down plays where he was one-on-one with the linebacker, with the tight end or with the running back, and he stopped him and stonewalled him for a fourth down, right? So, I mean, he was a pleasant surprise today to see him step up and start to mature. And then just to see that we're able to cycle in Tavon Austin, Raphael Bush, and the elder statesman of the group, Grover Quinn, right, who's constantly making plays. For us to just rotate in safeties, right, and then you saw Jonathan Banks get some run time today too. So the secondary really played well. I think it shows that we've got some health, right? We've got some depth, and they trust the guys. So I'm excited to see what we can do, especially when you hold one of the best receivers in the league. And the kid from Jacksonville, Robinson, three receptions, 18 yards total. It's a hell of a game for Slay.
Yeah, that was, and that I talked about it just briefly on the show. That pass interference was bogus. It wasn't a pass interference, and from my estimation. Now,
how did it look on TV? Because in the stands, the point of it when the ball was in the air, it definitely wasn't. But when Robs broke on the ball, I think Slay got a little grabby, but I couldn't, they didn't show a replay in the stand.
No, man, like when it first happened, I'm looking like, oh, maybe, but it was one of those deals where I think, how you can have contact on it. You can touch him as long as you don't impede, you don't impede his progress, or you don't like push him. You can have a hand on his back or in the general area. And that's what it looked like more so, if anything. And so I was a little disappointed to see him get that PI for that one. But, the next thing I want to ask you though, cause I'm a little bit worried. Now, I don't make excuses for wins. A win is a win, but this was supposed to be the laugher, right? We've had so many close games. I've had, I don't know how many, bottles of Motrin I've gone through from having stress headaches and just after the game, I'm out of it. Have to take a nap almost because the games have been so crazy. You look at C2-7 Jacksonville. It's like, all right, cool. This would be the easy one. And it wasn't. The offense still bad. One of the worst rush defenses in the league. And we couldn't get anything going on the ground. Are you a little worried? Cause I'm looking at Minnesota and, even Green Bay. We're in first place, but that Lions team that played this Sunday will not win the division or get in the wild card. Was this like just rusty, or we got some big issues we still need to figure out?
I'm doing some more reading on Twitter. It looks like the O-line really took a step back, right? Swanson did not have the best game. Glasgow, I saw him on his butt a couple times. Decker had some untimely errors, at the left tackle position. Didn't see much from Reef. I think we're a little rusty coming out of the O-line, obviously because we couldn't run the ball. We had 12 rushing yards for the entire game.
It was pathetic.
But Washington, I know a lot of people in the stands were really crying to not have Washington playing the game, but I personally like Washington. I think Theo Riddick is a third down back.
Washington's a better runner than Riddick. He's a better actual running back.
And he falls forward, right? Theo generally does not fall forward. He has to dive under tackles to get the 2-yard gains, whereas Washington, the 2-yard gains he can carry those pads, right? So I like that, that they're giving Washington the burn, but it is a frightening that you're going into a game where we got away with the Vikings game with not having Kendricks, right? He set out that game, and then Anthony Barr has been a shell of himself this season. So I still think the Lions should be favored at home to beat the Vikings, but you need a running game. You can't go and expect Stafford to sling the ball. This was Stafford's, I think if I looked at right, it was his third highest passing yards for the season, but he didn't look like he had a good game, right? He got a bunch of chunk plays from Theo and Ebron, right? Who are carrying this team on offense.
They are.
It's just sad that Marvin Jones and Golden Tate disappear, because Anquan Bolton got 9 targets today, whereas I didn't see very much from Marvin Jones, and Golden Tate really just couldn't hold on to the football.
And that's the thing too. Golden Tate is supposed to be so sure-handed, and he's done fine. This game was a little bit off. Marvin Jones. And then what you said about that offensive line, maybe it's like, with them being young, they're going to hit that funk here and there, because collectively they're one of, if not the youngest offensive line in the league. So, that being said, you gave the reasons as to why, despite the win, we kind of look rusty. Is this something that continues? I mean, what do you think, man? Are we going to get this thing done? Are we finally going to be able to host a playoff game in January? I know it's early, but just looking ahead, Minnesota, and you've got some tough road games, all right? You got Dallas, you got New York, you got New Orleans, and you got the rest of your division, but all at home. Minnesota won. Maybe they're trying to get a bounce back. Green Bay's playing right now. We'll be rooting hard, hail to the Redskins. Are we going to get it done in your estimation, just as you look at the slate of games and based on how the Lions played today and just in general?
The funny thing is, we've talked about this before. I'm a Caldwell fan. I know that I'm in the very minority in the city of Detroit with that, and I think a lot of people don't like the guy. So I think you guys.
That's like your cousin or something, though, man. We've been here. Remember, you guys got some type of.
We have.
You guys got some blood, man.
Well, he's a distant cousin. You know how black folks have cousins.
We all related.
how we do it, but I truly think you got to look at this game, at a game at a time, because we've slung together some nice games here, right? We in the last 5 games we were 5-1. And we shouldn't have lost to the Bears, shouldn't have lost to the Titans. Each game we've tinkered some things, but we just haven't played. I don't think we've played 4 quarters of football, all 3 units together, and that's what gives me optimism, right? This isn't 97-1. I know your podcast is generally an optimistic one and a forward-looking one, right? We're not Cal Bogey and Rieger. I absolutely can't stand the guys. But my thing is, you look at this game, and I think on paper and from with the talent that we have, the Lions can compete with every team on this schedule, even the Cowboys. Personally, I think the Cowboys are a good football team, but if you can shut down the running game, we'll see what they really are
They
about.
don't scare me, man. It's something about Dallas. It's like, okay, they're 9-1. I'm more worried about the Giants game. Like, for some reason, I don't know if it's based on, I know our strengths versus that. Like, Dallas doesn't scare me. Like, if I'm looking, Seattle, obviously you got to worry about them. Our rest of our division, but New York, I'm more worried about that game than the Dallas game for some reason. It's weird.
Yeah, I look for us to prove ourselves, right? The big test is Thursday, I think. You always got to look to the next game, but because it's a division game, it counts as 2. You got to win on Thanksgiving at home, and it's a tough game to bounce back from with everybody only having 3 days rest. So going into this Vikings game, if you can come out this game and stretch your lead to 7-4, get distance between the Vikings, I think they have a chance. But I still think with the Bears still at home, and you got the Packers at home, you still have a good shot. You can win this division at 9-7. But ultimately, the Lions have to play. They have to play 3 phases of football. I mean, like, what was it? The game before, was it the Viking game where Sam Martin just could not punt the football, or was it the Texans game? And then this week, Sam Martin was booming the ball, right? He had a great game. It's just like every week, one piece in our armor is just not there. And I don't think it's a preparation thing. I think that's where a lot of people like to point the finger at Caldwell. I think Jim Bob and Caldwell and company are really clicking right now. They've got Stafford playing at an MVP arguably level right now. So I like what the Lions are doing, and I think you got to go into this Viking game hoping that the Lions can continue the streak to beat a divisional opponent.
That's what's up, man. Now, before we let you go, you've alluded to it. I think we know where you're leaning, and I'm going back and forth on it. Maybe by the end of the show, I will have a definitive prediction. This Thursday, man, let's see what you got. Vikings, they're coming here. They've got the win. They got off that horrendous losing streak. Lions, we're not limping into this game. We're coming off a victory ourselves, 2 in a row and 5 out of the last 6. This is a big matchup, man. The division, at this point, will be decided based on this game for that week or whatnot. So who do you have, man? Vikings versus Lions.
Oh, I have the Lions, no doubt. I have the Lions at home. You see a resurging Ziggy Ansah today, who I really didn't get a chance to talk about.
Man, he was all over the place.
Man, he made pressure. He was a step behind on maybe another blast of the quarterback. He caused the fumble today. The thing that always gives us problem with the Vikings is the elite player, and the elite player has been hurt for the season, Adrian Peterson. So the only player that I'm worried about that scares me on the Minnesota team is Stephon Diggs. That's the only player I'm afraid of. They have no matchup for Theo Riddick, and Matthew Stafford continues to play at an elite level and not turn the football over. Hopefully we can get to Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford is a clay of putty. If you can poke him, he's going to fall apart. So ultimately, I like the Lions in this game. Sam Bradford to me is a mediocre quarterback that shouldn't be paid anything above $10 million a year, and he should be out the league in a couple of years. So I like the Lions in this game.
There we go, man. Hey, as always, we appreciate you joining us. Tell us, the guys out here listening, I'm sure most of them, they listen to my show. They've listened to it for a little while. They already know about you because you join us. It hasn't been as frequent this year, but you're always a welcome and regular guest. But for some of the new listeners, tell them where they can find you so they can hear what you do, because you do it at a high level, man.
Yeah. So we last week, I actually joined the podcast. I got to get you on it. It was called, Talk Sports Podcast. I'm going to get you on it one of these days. Good show. I did a show with them recently. I still manage our Twitter account, those DET guys. So I interact with all the fans and the big Lions fans, and Pistons as well, Tigers. So I do it all like you, but you can catch me on Twitter, those DET guys. And hey, man, we welcome the conversation, man. And I got to give you credit. 2 years ago, I always used to give you crap about your Twitter account. You're staying on it, man. So keep up the great work.
Yeah, man. It took me a little while to get the ball rolling, but I'm doing a little bit better. I'm even starting to post, as you saw yesterday, not just Lions things, trying to, I'm like 2 years late to everything. But hey, you're definitely one of the ones that had me get a little bit more active on my Twitter. So that's cool, man. As always, Gandy, thanks for joining us. Looking forward to you hopping on here. Let's set this up, man. We're not going to let, another 3 or 4 games go by without you hopping on here. Sounds good?
Hey, I'm all about it. All about it, Jerry, man. Have a good weekend. Have a great week. Enjoy Turkey Day. And, man, we'll be talking through text over the game, I'm sure.
Yes, sir, man. Have a good one.
All right, brother. Take care.
That was Chris Gandy. As always, those guys, DET, he's one of the best at it. His analysis is spot on. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll close the show out with our normal segment. It's Callouts and Shoutouts. I've been talking about some of my fears and my theories after this game. I'm not all doom and gloom, but I will shed a little bit more light on how I'm feeling about this Thursday's game. So we'll do that, a little bit of call out shoutouts, and then we'll give you that prediction. So stay right here on the Hindsight 20 podcast. Jerry Mallory here for the Hindsight 20 podcast. It's simple. If you want your ad to be placed right here, send us an email, hindsight20podcast@gmail.com. And guess what? I'm going to make it happen. All right, dudes, we're back. Hindsight 20. Call outs and shout outs. It's the segment that it's simple. And if you've been listening to the show, you know how it goes. We named 3 guys. On the good side, those are the ones that we're shouting out. These are the players that, they did a fine job. All right. We're proud of them. They were instrumental in our win. And even if we lost, they did what they had to do. And then, those that were calling out, well, that's the other side of the coin. Those that we call out, they gotta get their game together. They gotta figure this thing out. And ultimately, they gotta step up. If they don't, hey, next man up, right? There's always someone in the corner lurking, ready to take your spot. Let's start off with the good news. We're going to give shout outs. First off, Miles Killebrew, man, this guy played phenomenal. It just brings a smile to my face, a tear to my eye to see, these draft picks from this class all being major contributors. Antoine Williams, you see him getting better at the linebacker spot week after week. Ashawn with a tackle for a loss. Decker and Glasgow, contributing right off the bat. This class has, really been impressive. And Miles Killebrew was one that we were very stoked about. And it's been a slow process. Adjusting, he's done a little linebacker. He's done a little, he's done primarily safety. He's even done a little linebacker. I'm just impressed with what, he did this game all over the place. He had 2 key 3rd down stops, and he's the guy that, I saw really instrumental in covering the tight end. Yes, that position, the tight end, the one that the Lions just seem to leave open every game. Well, we played a decent tight end in Julius Thomas. He's, more than above average. He's one of the better tight ends in the league, super athletic, fast. Yet and still, he didn't do much of anything. And I was watching the film over right before I did this show. I didn't get a chance to look at everything, but just a few things that stood out to me was a lot of the times you saw Miles Killebrew assigned to the tight end. He had 2 big 3rd down stops, tons of tackles. He hits hard. And he's been making some smart plays. This is a guy that fits that mold, that Mark Barron, that Deion Buchanan hybrid. He's a little bit of safety. He's a little bit of linebacker. I love what he's doing so far. So we're looking forward to seeing more of him. Miles, hey, welcome to the 2016 draft class. A lot of your fellow compadres have already made big contributions, and now he's coming in and doing just that. And I heard he's very disciplined as well and a student of the game. You got to love it. Next is Andre Roberts. He was running full steam ahead into the wrong category, okay? He was just barreling down the call-out section, the bad news. And, in the words of Jim Carrey, you totally redeemed yourself. The offense was horrible. We were struggling. We needed something. And it was similar to when we played the Chicago Bears. We needed something. We couldn't get points, man. And this guy rips off a punt return touchdown. Yes, he had the muff punt. That was bad. That cost us 3 points. But hey, you cost us 3, you get us 6. And people, here's the thing. Once you have a punt return and then you get another one, now people are game planning toward you. They're going to try to keep the ball away from you. And oftentimes in the effort to keep the ball away from you, you sacrifice, your punting distance, your net yardage, because you just don't want that guy to have a chance to return. And so the impact of him now having a couple of returns for touchdowns, he's had a few big returns overall anyway. The impact of that is much bigger than just the game itself, that one particular moment, because now when people scheme and they're punting away from you and they're thinking about you, that oftentimes bears good for you in the punt return area. And, Stafford, we just got to give it to him, man. The dude's been playing lights out. All right. He's been exactly what we've needed. I just love it, man. It's not 5,000 yards. It's not, a ton of touchdowns. The stats aren't crazy. But aside from that, it's winning. Okay. It's playing smart. It's not turning the ball over. And, I'm very proud of what he's done. Now, callouts, the linebackers just lived there for like 10 weeks, pretty much. All right. 10 games. They just it was the official linebacker call out segment. Not this week. And I should be giving them more props than what I am to see them play that good. And then you have the prospect of DeAndre Levy, possibly coming back. That's really good. But now the offensive line, Chris Gandy pointed toward it. They were bad, man. To me, 3 guys, Decker struggled, Swanson struggled, and Warford struggled. I have to look again to see how Glasgow and Reef did. But, the run game being non-existent, was unacceptable. And, our running backs kind of played a role in that as well. Just not having the holes, not having the opportunity, really cost us. And so I got to call those guys out. Then, I'm looking at Golden Tate. I'm looking at, Marvin Jones, they're not getting open. That's the problem. Some of these sacks we're taking, they're just not getting the separation. Now that was a knock on Golden Tate. And he had the benefit of having Calvin with him. So coverage always concerned with Calvin, which meant that, Tate would get open by default because the numbers game. Well, without having, one guy taking up 2, sometimes 3 people, we're really seeing him struggle to get open downfield. And so, he's still doing his thing in the short area, which is fine. And, Marvin Jones he's regressed as well. The deep ball threat that we wanted from him, we're not quite seeing yet. But if I'm picking one, I will go with Golden Tate because it was a very costly turnover. We were in field goal range. It could have tied the game. Hey, it all worked out. We end up doing what we had to do to win the game, but big turnover by him. Can't have that. And then, our running backs, I'm going to have to call both of them out, Theo Reddick and Dwayne Washington. Washington is just young. And I think some of the holes and some of the things that he saw in preseason is not there. I think part of that is he's not 100%. He's just not running quite as good, quite as strong, quite as fast. Granted, preseason, you can always look a certain way and, you're not going against the number 1 defenses. You're going against some of the third stringers and whatnot. But we need more from him because, you can get by with this against a Jacksonville. All right. But if you don't have a respectable run game, that passing game, it will falter. Your offense will falter. Same with Theo Reddick. I love what he does, and I'll excuse him because of, the catches and the yards. But in terms of the running back, I'm calling out the runner, Theo Reddick. He just does not, he goes side to side a little bit. He dances sometimes a little bit too much. Now, the thing is, you don't want to take that away from him because that's really what he's known for and he's good at it. But the running game is bad, and that's a combination, both the offensive line and the guys that we have running the ball. I don't know, man, maybe, throw a little Justin Forsett out there. It would really be good to have Amir Abdullah right now. I said it, I'll say it again. He's by far the best runner we had on this team, best all around running back, but it is what it is. I was surprisingly, even though we were kind of blah, blah as this game went, there weren't any specific guys. When I was looking at the call-out section, sometimes I'll have a list very long. So kudos to this team this week. It was not as long. And for our shout-outs, there were several guys I could have included, but I only went with the 3, so I didn't want to cheat there. Now, some of my fears, I'm looking at this game Thursday. I got us winning, okay? Just start with that prediction. It's going to be close, I think. I think we'll find a way to win it. I'm looking at maybe 24-21, like a really close game. But I am worried the way this team played against the Jacksonville Jaguars, a 2-17. We seem to play up or down to the level of our competition. I think that comes to bite you. You can only go to the well so many times, and the well should be dry. These fourth quarter comebacks. I'm gonna withhold from making any bold statements, but our chances, even though we're still in first place and we got this win, I got to see a little bit more. I have to see something else from this team coming up this Thursday. I need to see a statement before I feel confident, because I did say I worry more about the Giants than Dallas, but those are two very tough teams on the road, and we know New Orleans can put up a ton of points. This offense just, there's a combination of things going on, but I don't see us being effective in a shootout game. So those are some hard games. Chicago, they stayed with the Jets or the Giants for quite some time, and, the Packers are going to give you a hard fight. I'm worried. If I'm saying yes or no right now, I'm saying no. We aren't a division winning team, and we're not a wild card team, although we are in that spot. But hey, I could be overreacting to the way we looked against the 2-17. So I'll have more information for you this upcoming Thursday after the Thanksgiving game. Hey guys, I want to thank each and every one of you for listening. As always, I can be found on Twitter at Jerry Mallory NFL. I talked to my boys over there at Pride of Detroit. I'll be joining them on their podcast pretty soon, and maybe I can do one of my videos, a little throwback deal. I haven't done a video with them in a little while, but as always, check them out, www.pridedetroit.com, and check out the rest of the crew here on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Thank you. As always, I'm so appreciative. Whether it's 1 or whether it's 1 million listens, I appreciate you very much from the bottom of my heart. All right, guys, Lions won. Let's celebrate. I don't care. I got my worries, but overall, it's a good Sunday because my boys got the victory. Until next time, next Monday, we'll be breaking down the Thanksgiving Day game. This has been Jerry Mallory for the Hindsight 20 podcast.